Hello, welcome back to an ongoing series. Today we have Gemini, Sun Sign, and the planetary nodes. My name's Bradley Naragon. I've been a little nervous about doing Gemini, to be honest with you. And maybe because for myself, I've kind of felt like the archetype's been a little hard to pin down. And maybe that's just part of the nature of Gemini, actually, that they are hard to pin down. And the planetary nodes for sun sign Geminis shed some light on this for sure. So we're going to do a little bit today where we're going to look at the planetary nodes for Gemini suns, kind of study that, see some of those turning points. We have, kind of a couple different general groups, classifications, so to speak, but the planetary nodes for Gemini are kind of there's some theme, and then there's a lot of change and a lot of diversity within it. So yeah, we're going to check that out. When I was getting ready for this over the last weeks, I had the thought about this idea of where stereotypes come from. And I think that there's definitely some truth in stereotypes. But of course, it's always more complicated and nuanced. And we're living in this era where there has been a long tradition of patriarchal cultures. And the crux of that is this idea that I'm right and you're wrong. And I just had the idea that I think perhaps some of these stereotypes have just been used to, I guess, kind of control other people psychologically, because I've noticed that a lot of the stereotypes spin in a negative light something that actually might be just what's natural for somebody, if they're just being themselves or doing what they need to do for themselves. But then it's they're being called, manipulative or too talkative or lazy, and they're supposed to be curious. They're supposed to be exploring. They're supposed to be taking time to themselves. So just a thought, something I've noticed. So check that out. Let me know what you think about that. Yeah, with the planetary nodes for Gemini suns, I notice that you can't really pigeonhole them at all. I do have a bunch of memes, and we're going to look at those. I've been looking at them and thinking, where are these coming from? Is this a Sun in Gemini trait, or are we also seeing this show up with the planetary node signatures? Definitely seeing some of the Gemini memes show up in the planetary node signatures, and not all of them can I explain. I've got some memes here. I'm not totally sure. Maybe someday I will be. That's okay. But this will still be a fun exploration, and if anything, if it leads to other people exploring and being curious and getting insights, that's great too. So having said all that, I have to pull up my slideshow here and share my screen. Here we go. Okay. There I am. Okay, we've got May 20th as the start. So we're going to notice that at the start of Gemini Sun, the south node of Venus is in the end of Aries. And she's an interesting one because by the time the sun goes into Cancer, she's going to have gone all through Taurus, all through Gemini, and she's cruising through Cancer. South node of Venus is moving fast. Very few, I'm trying to think if there's any other sun signs that have 4 different signs for the south node of Venus. And right off the top, I'm not sure. I don't think so, but I haven't fact checked myself on that. Regardless, clearly, if Venus represents how we are, where we're coming from in relationship to ourselves and others, seeing the south node of Venus in Aries or Taurus or Gemini or Cancer, we're seeing that Gemini suns are coming from a lot of different places. And we can't really put Gemini suns as a collective in one box regarding where they're coming from and how they are in relationship. Having said that, though, notice that the south node of Mars starts in Scorpio, and then if we go forward just a couple days in, we're into Libra, and let's do the full zoom ahead here. So right now I'm just watching the south node of Mars. I believe it's going to stay in Libra for the rest. So most of the Gemini suns are going to have a south node, because the south node of Mars doesn't actually go back to Virgo. It only goes as far back as Libra, and then it kind of ends that trajectory, and then it swings back up, and then it goes back through Libra, Scorpio, Sag, stops at the end of Sag, and then goes back to Libra. That's what it does every year. So most of our Gemini suns have that south node of Mars in Libra. So there is a commonality with that. Now, if I can bring your attention, so we're at the end of Gemini, June 20th. So here's that south node of Venus in it's almost made it all the way through Cancer. It's crazy. So watch, now we're going to go backward through time. Watch the south node of Venus as we go back. I mean, it's just flying. And that's because, from the perspective of Earth, if we're looking at the sun, the orbit of Venus, goes around the sun, and it's closer to the sun than we are. And basically what it's saying is that south node of Venus is between us and the sun. We're moving, it's not really moving necessarily. I mean, it is, but it's not. It's moving so slow that it's centuries and centuries for it to really move through a sign. Millennium, a couple thousand years. So mainly it's like here's the sun, here's the south node of Venus, and then here's Earth making this very close pass, because really the orbit of Venus is the closest that we get to any other celestial orbit or body, right? So when the Earth comes by that south node of Venus, it just looks like it's moving so fast because we're just cruising by it like that. And meanwhile, the other north node of Venus is on the far side, so it's moving really slow. And bring your attention back to here. So we've got the north node of Venus. It does begin in Gemini. We see that there. And as we go through, there's the north node of Venus conjunct Uranus in Gemini. Now there's that north node of Mercury moved pretty quickly in June 7th. So beginning of Gemini Sun to June 6th, we've got that north node of Mars in Taurus. Now for the second half of Gemini, the north node of Mars is in Gemini. And this is interesting because basically, I mean, look at all those north nodes in Gemini. Right now we've got a lot of nodes in Gemini for Gemini suns. And here we hit on June 11th, 12th, the south node of Venus is out. But we still have, now here we have the north node of Mercury is conjunct Uranus. And if we continue this, we end with all three of the personal planet north nodes, all in Gemini. Two of them have made conjunction with the north node of Uranus. Also worth noting that, as we can see, the south node of Mercury and Venus are well into Cancer right now. Let's backtrack that for a second and watch those again. Okay, so it was 11th, 12th, so it's kind of the last 9-10 days for the south node of Venus in Cancer. And then Mercury, there was a conjunction on the 8th with north node of Jupiter. There it is, June 3rd, it goes in. So we've got over half of the latter end of Gemini suns with a south node of Mercury in Cancer. So having some prominent south nodes in Cancer, Geminis are coming from a Cancerian place in ways that they communicate and ways that they relate for a little over half of them. And then, of course, before that, I believe the south node of Mercury is just in Cancer, or I'm sorry, it's in Gemini only before that. There it is. Yep. There we're back to the start. South node of Venus is in Aries. South node of Mars is in Scorpio, just briefly. And we start with that north node of Mercury and Mars in late Taurus. So planetary node-wise, there's just a lot of different signatures happening for Gemini suns, which is, I think, why it's kind of it's a little bit of a hard subject. There's no blanket statements necessarily, except that there's a wide diversity of different signatures going on. You really got to look at each particular person. Some of the other sun signs, we've got the whole sun sign has the nodes of Venus in a certain sign. So that's a little intro into that. And let's see how this goes. This is totally experimental, but it should be, because we're honoring the north node of Uranus in Gemini here, really. There's so many conjunctions with the north node of Uranus in Gemini, south node of Mercury, the north node of Venus, the south node of Venus, the north node of Mercury. So we've got at least 4 conjunctions there that happen planetary node-wise with this Uranus north node in Gemini. And I talked a fair amount on the north node of Uranus in Gemini on sun sign stereotypes and the planetary nodes part 2. That is a larger, it's basic. The north node of Uranus is always in Gemini. It's been in Gemini for a long time. And it's extra emphasized in the evolution of the collective because the Neptune-Pluto conjunctions are in Gemini right now. The last Neptune-Pluto conjunctions were in 1892 and 93. So, I mean, what says instant messaging like Uranus and Gemini, right? And the rate of the spread of information in the world today and communications, it in a lot of ways shows that we're evolving in some capacity through this north node of Uranus in Gemini. And, as Uranus is a natural ruler of Aquarius, and we're kind of on this cusp of, we're at the end of the Pisces Virgo subage. We're starting into the age of Aquarius. There's not really a definitive day or line here. So in that process, it's just something to think about, because Uranus rules Aquarius and we're progressing into this age of Aquarius. The north node of Uranus in Gemini, because of that, is becoming highlighted. Because of the Neptune-Pluto conjunctions, it's being highlighted. So there's multiple reasons why. And what we can't see right on this right now is, if we looked at just the heliocentric nodes, the heliocentric north nodes of Venus in Ceres are very close to the north node of Uranus. There's basically a triple conjunction of north nodes that aren't moving, the heliocentric ones of Venus, Uranus, and Ceres, which is a whole big topic of, and it relates to what's happening in the world today with technology and how that's evolving and changing our relationships, for sure. Definitely. Most definitely. One of the things about Gemini that I was thinking about with seeing, before we get into the memes, so I was looking at this, and specifically this Uranus north node in Gemini, and I had the thought of freedom to objectively project themselves into the environment. So that north node of Uranus gets activated a lot, and Gemini as an archetype is naturally curious. It needs to know and learn and explore its environment, the world around them, in so many different ways, and it needs, especially with this Uranus as this backdrop, and we could even say the heliocentric north node of Venus conjunct Uranus. There's a strong need for a Gemini archetype as it exists collectively on the planet right now to have a lot of freedom in relationships, to do this exploration, whatever that means for them. And another thought I had was pollination of the mind. Sometimes I just think of, when I think of the seasons at least in the northern hemisphere, as they relate to this Aries, the seed germinates. Taurus, it becomes established and roots. And Gemini, we have the pollination. In Cancer, we grow the fruit. In Leo, we reach the fullness of the plant. In Virgo's harvest. In Libra, we weigh the harvest. So the Gemini time of year is a very busy time, and there's a lot to discover and explore in the physical world, at least in the northern hemisphere at the Gemini time. And it's the time where plants flower, and there's a lot of cross communication between insects, birds, and plants and people. There's a lot going on. So there is, in the sense that Gemini, of course, correlates to the mind and how we think and perceive and what we know about the world, and how that grows and expands as we take in more information and interrelationships of the world. There is a pollination of the mind, so to speak, that happens. Fertilization of ideas that you could even go so far as say is that Gemini suns are called to do this, because all these north nodes are in Gemini. So that, if I did make a blanket statement about Gemini suns, maybe I would say that there is this larger call for them to pollinate and fertilize the mind. So, okay, let's see what happens here with some of these. I'm going to zoom ahead a smidge here, a few days, just because. Okay, for our first meme says that Geminis be like getting really close to someone and letting them know the real you, and the person. So basically the meme's saying that Geminis don't get close to people. Just thinking about this, is that just a Gemini trait in and of itself? Now, obviously everything I just said was a little bit of a precursor to this, because honestly, I feel like, excuse me, I feel like all this emphasis on the north node of Uranus, heliocentric north node of Venus conjunct it, and then we've got 4 different conjunctions that happen with that north node of Uranus. The Gemini suns need a lot of freedom. They need a lot of freedom in their relationships. So when I read that meme, I'm going to this place in my head because I can only come to a conclusion that part of this not wanting to get close is there's this need to evolve in this direction, and there's a certain level of freedom that's needed. So getting tied down or getting roped into someone else's dynamics is not something that they're going to just do willy-nilly or do lightly. They need to protect their freedom in a sense as part of their own evolution. The meme puts it as a negative thing, again, that there's something wrong with potentially, or that's a negative trait that Geminis have. Now, if we are a Gemini sun and we don't have the time or care or ability to communicate why we're acting a certain way in relationship, that'll of course affect the relationship. But the planetary nodes point to a certain need to stay to free and loose. The other one says that Gemini is spreading yourself thin and keeping all your interactions superficial, while at the same time faking intimacy with gossip just to gain information. Yeah. So their evolutionary path is to gain information, and there's certainly within the signature an ability to play different roles in conversation, to explore where other people are coming from, what ideas they have. So I think that that faking intimacy could be also a projection onto Gemini a little bit. Granted, yes, they could do that for sure. And also maybe other people need to learn a little bit of how to relate with Geminis and understand what their end game is, and what their evolutionary path is. So I think some of the memes get kind of interwoven into other people's emotional reactions to negative experiences with sun signs. And there's these under layers of truth and dynamics that the nodes reveal, right? This is a little boy who's apparently a Gemini, and there's 2 things, one in each hand. In one hand it says giving an honest answer to "Are you okay?" and the other hand says joking about it and dying on the inside. So the meme basically, and the other one too, there's definitely an ongoing theme with the Gemini memes of a certain fear of intimacy, which of course is this Aquarius Uranus trait. So it doesn't escape the fact that they have a lot of emotions going on. And the dying inside part, one of the things I thought of too was, once we get here and we've got the south node of Mercury in Cancer, there's another level of emotion and potentially taking things personal in the mind and how one thinks. And when the south node of Venus is in Cancer too, like those Gemini suns could be definitely coming from a place of being this last third Gemini suns a lot more sensitive actually, and are probably going to protect this and not reveal it, but emotionally torn up a little bit. So that was interesting. There's probably a lot more to that. Like I said, there's a lot of layers to this. This meme says you won't have to deal with a Gemini's 300 personalities if you act right the first time. Multiple personalities. Interesting topic in astrology. Some of the things that the planetary nodes make me think of is we've got this south node of Mars in Libra. It's also in a nice trine to all these north nodes here hanging around Uranus. So it's kind of a signature that suggests that it would be easy to. So okay, south node of Mars, Libra. Past desire was to socialize, to experience a diversity of relationships. So it's kind of saying if you're coming from a Mars in Libra, a south node of Mars Libra, well, one, you could be like relationship dependency. It could be going to extremes in relationship. It could be the desire to connect with a wide diversity of different social experiences. It could be coming from this desire of really wanting justice and fairness. It could be all of those things. The Libra 7th house archetype in terms of how we relate, and then of course Venus as an archetype of relating. So seeing all the nodes of Venus, the north and the south node, both cross Uranus, there's a lot of the signature kind of suggests the ability to switch up modes of relating, and sense that Gemini suns are coming from a place where they have experienced a diversity of relationships and ways of relating. They can switch it up. That have to act right the first time or you're going to get all the personalities. That's interesting. And there's a few things. I mean, because there's so many different signatures for Gemini suns, it's hard to say where this is coming from. At the point where both of the south node of Mercury and Venus are in Cancer, I think that you're going to have this switching up of personalities is going to be related to a Cancerian security mechanism, and the fact that if somebody didn't get it right the first time, it implies that maybe they were just a little insensitive with the Gemini to begin with, and therefore that they're going to protect themselves and just give them different personalities and not really relate and connect it. In a way, it also suggests that so the north node of Venus and Mercury conjunct Uranus is really also ultimately about communicating and relating in a very authentic way. And the meme suggests that when a Gemini is hurt or doesn't trust someone, they're not doing their north nodes. They're not just connecting in this authentic way. They're falling back to south node patterns. And you'd have to look at the whole chart and the individual birth date to really get into that. But it's a pretty interesting concept and meme there. This one says, yep, I'm a Gemini. and then it has each letter of Gemini. G, good at reading others. E, either too distant or too clingy. M, making inappropriate jokes. Intelligent but lazy, not taking anything seriously. Iconic fashion sense. Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot there. Good at reading others. Obviously with all of this Gemini, I think even between Gemini or the Cancer south nodes for Mercury, it's Gemini suns are good at picking up a lot of different social clues and what's going on. And I think Cancers in general are pretty good at reading people. So especially for the latter Geminis, I would say that's true too. The either being too distant or too clingy, like we kind of starting to see some repeated themes. The clingy part to me is again, well, we've got a Libra South node in a Mars Libra South node could be clingy, of course, dependency, and then if you add the Cancer South nodes on top of that, we do kind of have a backdrop there of potential clinginess, right, with the planetary nodes. But then there's the flip because of this evolutionary call to have the freedom to continue to explore the world and life around them freely. So if they get too, if they could be clinging, basically they could be clinging themselves, and then kind of realize that they've put themselves into a situation where they're not able to have the freedom that they need. So other people can become confused and say, Gemini, you're giving me mixed messages. What's going on? Making inappropriate jokes, it just makes me think of Uranus, to be honest with you, with all those. And if we go back, we could definitely say that this here, the early May with the south node of Mercury conjunct Uranus, and then the south node of Venus conjunct Uranus as we get into June 6th, June 7th, definitely could be coming from an inappropriate joke place. And even with all the north nodes conjunct that Uranus, there's a little bit of that Uranian just need to be inappropriate, outside the box of social norms, shock value. It's a curiosity to see what's going to happen and response. It's just you're getting more information as a Gemini by being inappropriate sometimes. Intelligent but lazy. I was looking at, I'm not sure where I see lazy in the planetary node signatures. Obviously, there's a huge emphasis on air signs. I think that going back to the earlier thread that I was talking about with stereotypes being rooted in patriarchal culture, putting this judgment on air signs as lazy, having a predominance of air in the chart, and saying, you've got a lot of ideas, but you're not doing the hard physical work. In a natural community, there's a lot of different roles that are naturally needed to be filled, and not everyone's supposed to do the same amount of physical labor in a certain way. It's kind of one of the problems and crises of the modern culture and society. So how do you find a job that fits and works for you? And monotony, with all these north nodes in Gemini, with Uranus as the linchpin there, things that are really monotonous and boring and routine might not be like so exciting at times for Geminis. So there could be a sense of, doing the dishes routinely at the same time every day is not going to float the boat necessarily. Does that make them lazy? I mean, I can see how these things come up as stereotypes, but doesn't necessarily. I think there's a lot more layers to it, Not taking anything seriously. I would say that in relation to the planetary nodes, the idea that Gemini suns don't take anything seriously is, I don't think it's necessarily true. I think that they hide their vulnerability in ways, especially when you have the Cancer South nodes involved. And I would say that, like I was saying earlier, there's a need to kind of fertilize, pollinate the mind. And if you take one idea too seriously and just hold on to that, I mean, obviously, like Uranus in Gemini, mutable air, and then you've got Uranus North Node there. There's really a call to be very open minded. So we could definitely argue that Gemini Sun's be coming from a place of, I'm really just trying to be open minded here. You're coming at me with, I'm not taking anything seriously. So it's a little bit about individuals' relationships to Gemini and how these memes and stereotypes come about. Iconic fashion sense, obviously, Gemini Mercury's always been known to be leading edge of trends, especially with the Uranus, what's new. So it kind of just makes sense. This one says, top reason why Geminis don't like to ask for permission to do things. Everything I want to do is illegal. I love that. And again, we're going to go back to the Uranus North Node. If they're doing all these North Nodes, they've got to be outside the box and unconventional. So, does Uranus want to ask for permission to explore and discover something? They just want to do it and see what happens. Of course. Geminis like a lot, but rarely love. Once they do love, you'll never see another love like it. Again, we have a repeating theme with the Gemini memes of there's this distance, they're not letting you in, but then this one's kind of giving this other layer of kind of like an intense loyalty and connection once they get there. And that's really interesting. I think that it's a curious one to put on the whole of Gemini as a sun sign. Obviously, with the emphasis of the north nodes of Mercury and Venus conjunct Uranus, Gemini suns are going to need relationships that support their autonomy, their independence and freedom. There's other sides, so the first half of Geminis, they're going to have that north node of Mars and Taurus. And then, June 2nd, so we've got a whole period, then the south node of Venus is in Taurus. So the early part of Gemini, we have definitely some Turian elements there. There we can see that the north node of Mercury is also in Taurus, which is suggesting that some of the early Geminis really do want to become pretty rooted and established, could be very loyal in relationships. So a north node of Taurus, like once they decide this is what I want, and they're doing that north node of Taurus, they're not going anywhere. That really speaks to that. On the flip side of it, when you come onto the other end of Gemini Sun, and we've got the south nodes of Mercury and Venus in Cancer, home and family, and you can see that those those south nodes of Venus and Mercury are just hitting all these outer planet north nodes, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn. So the family and the home can be very important especially to the latter Geminis, especially as an area of life that is what they evolve through. So I think the early and the latter Gemini suns to me really emphasize this aspect of this really deep. Once they're there, they're there. This one says, "How we tell when a Gemini loves you," and the face is like, and then it hates you, and they're like, it's kind of silly. But basically, it's a bit of a mixed message thing, where if I mean, right, it's kind of saying if they have intense emotional responses to you, it's because they love you. If they're angry or if they're arguing with you, they love you. It's because they're willing to spend time on you. And if they hate you, they're gonna be scary, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure about that one. Maybe if they hate you, they just fuck with you to get information about how you respond. I don't know. I'm not sure. Let's see. This one, we're almost there. This one, Gemini, starts relationship drama when they're bored. Okay. I would yeah, I mean, there's a process of discovery in relationships that's necessary for Gemini suns, for sure. So other people might, label that as drama in relationship. It might just be their own process, and maybe it is being bored, so they need to kind of like unturn something, uncover another rock, or find some other thing that's dynamic or exciting or new. There's got to be something different in this relationship. What other dynamics are there to explore? So if this challenges other people, then they may not like that dynamic. Then why are you with a Gemini? But okay, this one says, okay, this is them as other people telling Gemini, you're going to end up alone because you won't open up to anyone. And Gemini says, you're going to end up divorced because you all let anybody in. Again, we have Gemini Sun Sign stereotype meme theme of them being protective. Can't help but go to those Cancer South nodes for this later half of Gemini's on here. Also, with the South node of Mars in Libra, kind of suggests Gemini suns may have, really wanted to be in relationship in the past. The need to be needed and be in relationship can create a blind spot. It can be like, oh, I got into that relationship and then that relationship, and now there's a need to be a little more discerning and protective. But ultimately, I think that a big part of that is sensing one's own call to need this level of autonomy and independence. So someone from the outside is criticizing Gemini suns, and they're, on some level, they may be very much listening to their own inner path here. They need that level of freedom. They're going to need that level of autonomy. So they really do need to find the right partner. And having been in perhaps a lot of relationships in other lifetimes or the past, however you see that, they're not at the point where they're just, yeah, been there, done that, don't need to be jumping into shit. right? Okay, I think this is the, oh, okay. This one says when you ask Gemini what they're thinking about, and then it's the person thinking, and there's a gazillion different thought bubbles above their head. Yeah, I mean, a complete explosion of ideas. Brain, like, what else says brainstorm? I mean, right? Yeah, definitely. Here's our last one. This has got a lot of little things. I'm going to read them, and I'm not sure which ones I'll comment on. Let's just see what happens. Gemini. It's got two cute, really adorable kittens in a basket together. It's really cute. Super duper smart, moody, fussy eater, internally agonizing, own best friend. Doesn't care, but actually does. Prefers cats. Two sides, both crazy. Never returns your text. Can use sarcasm, but not detect it. I know you are, but so am I. And independent and simultaneous, and independent and needy simultaneously. Okay, last one again. Independent and simultaneously needy. We've been talking about this. We've got the Cancer South nodes. We've got the Libra South node. They've got all of this Uranus, and of course, I mean, some of, if you go, for example, over here, we've got the south node of Venus is conjunct the north node of Uranus, and it's in a trine to Mars, south node of Mars in Libra. The south node of Mercury is already in Cancer. So there is definitely a kind of a theme of being needy and simultaneously very independent. See that all over Gemini Sun for sure. Two sides, both crazy. Yeah, right. Never returns your texts. Let's talk about that. Gemini Suns, why aren't you returning texts? Probably got, on to the next thing or something. I probably do return texts, but maybe not right away. Maybe not in someone else's timeline, timely enough. I think we get into a little bit of, you're not, Gemini Sun is really, with the planetary nodes, it's just like, don't fence me in. Don't try to put me on your schedule. It's not going to work. Not going to work. So we're seeing a little bit of people who want Gemini Suns to be more predictable, to be more, I mean, I think that to say a Gemini Sun isn't reliable, I don't think that's fair. I think it's all about the level of relationship and how much they value it and who they're relating with, right? So yeah, don't take it personally, I guess, or do take everything personally. Try it. Own best friend. Oh. Yeah, I'm just prefers cats. I don't know. I honestly do not know if Gemini Suns prefer cats. Maybe. Although, I would say that I do think that Cancer in its emotional connection correlates to dog relationships. So I would say that, June 4th and especially June 11th onward, we might see Gemini Suns have more dog relationships. Maybe the earlier Gemini Suns are more cat people. A thought. Okay. Well, I think that's about it. I'm gonna stop my share. Wait a second. Oh shit. Okay. Thanks for tuning in again. Part 3, Gemini Suns. Like I said in the beginning, I was a little nervous. This is partially researched and rehearsed, a little bit off the cuff Uranian exploration. So thanks for tuning in, and yeah, Cancer will be up next sometime. I don't know. We'll see. Take care.